Okay. Thank you for joining us in the room with a special agenda. I have who I hope is going to be someone who will be joining me regularly to give all of our village information that we need. I want you to introduce yourself, Joliet.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joyette Master,
I'm so
and
sorry, but your
no,
name.
you are absolutely fine. I'm affectionately known as Zakai's mom or Z mom, and I don't know what else you want
She also is a
to
substitute teacher and a
Yes.
ally in the community of having a child that is on the same journey and path that I am on with my children. My kids are a little bit older, but we are here to inform, educate, and support parents who are on the same path with us as far as parenting children who are on the spectrum and are trying helping individuals to learn to navigate um, the journey that they're on and understanding what information they need. Sometimes we get so lost because we don't have the direction that we need, and there isn't anyone seemingly to tell us what we need to know. Sometimes we don't even know what to ask. So if you need to go somewhere and you don't even have the address of where you need to go, it's hard to tell someone this is where I need to go because you're not even sure yourself. So, what has been your experience um, with being lost in that, learning what to do when it comes to resources?
you. That has been my biggest journey and my biggest fear that I would not be able to find the right necessary resources for my son and that he'll be left behind, so to speak, that I wouldn't be able to help him navigate the world
Yeah.
and be able to stand on his own 2 feet. Because that's my end goal is to make sure that, you know, when it come time for him to be out on his own, that he's capable
Mm-hmm.
and that he's able to do the things that he would love to do. So for me, I was lost early because there was no family members, no friends that was going through the same things that I was going through. So I was kind of left out there in the wilderness by myself, so to speak, with no guidance, no direction as to where to go or who to ask.
How has it been helpful being a part of the school system and learning what you can do and who can be of assistance?
Um, I've learned to friend a lot of a lot of the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to ask a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I've always asked, you know, at the end, what can I do at home to
Yeah.
better my son? What can I do better as a parent? How can I communicate? And I'm always volunteering
Yeah.
because I want them to see my face and I want them to know that I want the best for my child.
Yeah.
And I think showing up shows them that. And when they see that you're showing up and that you're willing,
Mm-hmm.
more information came my way.
Yes, and that's great. But some people aren't fortunate enough to be capable to work in the school environment. So they don't have those opportunities. And some parents, because they are so overwhelmed, sometimes it comes across as challenging,
Mm-hmm.
the teachers. And so instead of being an ally, it comes across to them as if you are wanting to be combative.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't understand that while you may appreciate the help, not knowing how to have a conversation where it doesn't seem like you're trying to be disagreeable or confrontational or not understanding what their roles and purposes are and that they are doing what they can do, also not knowing what their responsibilities are and what's expected of you and where to ask for help because there are only certain things that they can say and they can't give you a diagnosis even if they know because legally they're not allowed. If they know that your child is on the spectrum, they can't directly say to you, this is why I want you to get your child evaluated. They can tell you what they observe. They cannot tell you why they feel that it's necessary outside of that. I'll never forget when my daughter was in daycare, and the daycare provider had a PhD in child care. So she understood what was going on with my daughter, but she couldn't tell me.
Mm-hmm.
She just kept telling me what was happening with her and why I needed to do something about it. I did not do that. I just thought she was sharing on what she observed, and she kept telling me that my daughter said that all day. And I knew that she loved her dad and very close to her dad. Oddly enough, to this day, like when she was an infant, she would wake up no matter if he left to go to the store or came home, was coming home from work, always at least 10 minutes before he woke. Before he came home.
Mm-hmm.
If she'd been down for a few minutes or a few hours. It's always been that way. It's that way to this day, and she is 22. So I'm thinking she's just pointing out the obvious. She loves her dad.
Right.
She is. She would tell me that other children would take something from her, um, and that she wasn't responding to that. She would just move out of their way. That's not normal. I didn't know that. I didn't know what I was supposed to be looking for. So her observations were going over my head.
Right.
And sometimes when teachers tell parents things, sometimes they feel like they're picking on their child
Mm-hmm.
when that is not what's happening. We miss opportunities to help our child by being defensive.
Yes. And
And
also, I would also add is you have to know your child for
yes,
yourself. It was nothing that they told me that I didn't already know.
yeah.
Even when it came down to his behavior, and they would say the green alien came out today. I was like, I know because it started this morning. So you're not telling me nothing I don't already know about my child. But getting to know your child for yourself and knowing what they're doing, so that when teachers are coming to you, I think it's the biggest thing is not feeling that way, but
Yeah.
knowing that the teachers are there to help and that you're on the same side
Yeah.
is the key. It's definitely the key.
For me, it I started to have that conversation with myself later
Mhm.
because there were so many things that I did that probably agitated them. But what I had to come to the conclusion was even if they're telling me things that may seem that it may be one sided, this is still an opportunity to assist your child. This is still someone pointing out something that needs to be addressed, no matter why you feel it needs to be addressed. That's like if someone um, hit your child with a car by accident. It doesn't matter why your child was in the road.
Mhm.
At this point, they need medical help. It doesn't matter if this person was speeding and this was their fault. At this point, we're not worrying about fault. We are worried about treatment.
Exactly. And I call it labels
Yes.
because we are so afraid of someone labeling
Mm.
our child because now they put them into another category that's not normal.
Mm.
Okay. But I say allow them to give a label
Mm-hmm.
so that we know what the problem is and we know what the issue is so that we could fix it
Yeah.
or get the help that they need.
That's it right there.
Get the help that they need. And then you teach your child that just because they have a label, that label does not define who they are. My son, he's 12. He just found out last year. Actually, I told him last year that he was on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the spectrum. He has dyslexia and he has apraxia speech.
Mm-hmm.
He probably have ADHD, but that's not on paper.
I hear you.
But I know he has a focus thing, issue going on. But I told him that last year because we wrote a book, and I wanted to.
Please show that. Put the book up.
So we wrote a book. He helped me write it. It's Z-Man Special Gifts, and it talks about because a lot of people think you
I
can
love
only
that.
be disabled if you see someone that is disabled. right? If you see someone in the wheelchair, you know they're disabled. If you see somebody with a cane, you know they have issues with walking.
Mhm.
But then when you see somebody that is autistic, you don't know
Mhm.
that they have a disability, or someone who have dyslexia, or someone who has apraxia of speech. So
Mhm.
this book is very simple. I kept the word simple. I kept it easy to read because it's something that is gonna teach people that, even though they have labels, that it's their superpower.
Is this already in the library?
It is at the at this public library at
See,
the
we got to get it
Dallas.
in the other library.
I know. I didn't know that. So this is my first time as an author. Me and my son.
I'm obsessed. I'm
I
obsessed.
privately published it,
I love
and
it.
because of that, is the reason why I'm not able to put them throughout all of the
Well,
libraries.
if you copyright it, you possibly could.
I would probably have to redo it and make like a second version or
No, you
something.
just copyright it.
Just
There's a,
copyright
there's a
it.
book.
Oh, okay. Because when I looked it up, I was like, "Oh no, I messed it up." But
Yeah.
you live and you learn, right?
I am excited.
So we are very excited about this book because it just shows that although he have all these labels, but I told him that he was autistic, and I explained to him. He looked it up himself, and then he came back this year and he was like, "So I'm autistic," and I was like, "Yeah," but we never told him because we didn't. It was a need to know. So if
Mhm.
we was with somebody and it was like, "Hey, can you watch, him for a second or whatever?" I would let you know that
Yeah.
he's a runner. He has autistic. He's autistic. So make sure if you explain something to him or ask him a question he don't understand, just reword it.
Right.
Is how I would say it
Yeah.
when I left him with. And usually it was just the grandmas,
Mm-hmm.
and so nobody really knew.
Yeah.
And so for him, he just been raised like Zakai all his life.
Yeah.
Because I knew his triggers and I knew what to do and what not to do to set
Right.
him off. So for him, it was like we didn't want him to use the fact that he was autistic or dyslexia or ADHD to define who he was, as far as saying, I can't do this because of
Representation.
this. Right.
Representation. And a lot of people don't know there are scientists and artists and
Mm-hmm.
performers who have many of the same issues.
And we looked them up and we shared them with him, and
Yes.
we wanted him to know that no matter what his labels are, that he could be and do whatever it is that he set his mind to.
Yeah.
And that's how we
Persistence.
raised him. And it's funny because I subbed the other day at elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
and a little boy was leaving, going to the buses, and he was like, "Oh, I have ADHD and I can't do that." And I had to stop him. I was like, "What did you just say?" I said, "Who told you you had ADHD?" "Oh, I just know. That's why I can't keep still in class." And I was like, "Okay, but like just because you have ADHD doesn't mean that you can't do your work."
Right.
Right? I'm like, you gotta find other things. If you have a fidget toy, I can't have that because I'll focus more on that and won't be able to do my work. So to me, it melted my heart because I was like, this poor kid
Doesn't know
was
the other
told that he had
support.
ADHD, and now in his head, he's telling his friend,
Mm-hmm.
and his friend said, I got that too, and that's why I can't keep still.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're using this label to define who they are. There's
Mm-hmm.
somebody who have ADHD that can't keep still and can't focus on their work.
They didn't tell them the things that they could do.
And they didn't tell them the things that they can do, that they can sit
Yeah.
down in their seat, and that they can focus on their work, and that if they use certain little things to help them
What they're
keep something in
supporting.
their pocket to help support them or teach them how to keep focus. You
They,
see what I'm saying? We're just telling our kids, this is you and this is what you have, and this is how life is going to be for you. And that's not true.
no. And one of the things I learned, like you said, of working with the teachers and them getting to know that you are there and you're going to be there all the time, is they started to search out the things that would work for him
Mm-hmm.
and was effective specifically for him. Like for a while, they had him, my son, where he could stand and work. Sometimes they even allowed him to listen to the radio. I had a friend who was a valedictorian, and in order for her to do her schoolwork, she listened to the radio. I've never seen anyone do their homework with the radio up
Mm-hmm.
because I need quiet.
Exactly.
But for her, she
Right.
the music
It
and
worked
all
for
of
her.
that. Yeah,
Mhm.
she's valedictorian. You'd never know that. She was on the basketball team. But she was never diagnosed with anything. But I thought that was the most interesting stuff. Plus, she also used to drive and put her stockings on, paint her nails, reading a letter. Hey, you trying to kill us?
Yeah, I don't think I'll ride in the car.
But talented and learning that sometimes that is their superpower. Sometimes
Yes.
someone not letting you know maybe the gift,
Hmm.
but learning what their accommodations are or
Right.
need be. And that's one of the things that needs to be learned, learning that path.
Hmm.
We were talking earlier about getting where you need to go, particularly with parenting and having children that you worry about them getting all that they need to have so that they have the necessary skills to support themselves with you around and with you not around. It's hard to do that when you don't know, it's not clear. The path isn't clear. It seems to be obstructed with lots of stuff. You don't know where you're supposed to go. You don't know what skill sets they're supposed to have. You don't know what supports they'll need. You don't know where to get those supports. You don't know what resources they need, what how to get those resources. You don't know how to talk, who to talk to about those resources. You don't know what limitations there are and what requirements and all the paperwork, how to manage that paperwork, what insurances are available, what doctors to talk to, who developmentally your child needs to talk to, who's available within the school system if your child starts to have behavioral issues,
Yes.
what to do so your child doesn't get labeled as difficult so that no one's really working with you. Because as fortunate as we are to have the children that we have, there are parents who have children who present with much more severe behavioral issues, and so they're kind of on the outskirts. So they do feel like they're fighting for their life for their kids. They feel like this is not a winning situation. And some of them decide to homeschool to the detriment of their kids. And you're not someone who's patient or understands what's available. Like recently, for my son, because of begging, they decided to put something in place where children who are special needs have something where they do get assistance as far as homeschooling is concerned. But if you're not a person who's patient, understands how the system is set up, you're literally on your own homeschooling with no outside assistance, no guidance,
Right.
no supervision from the school system. You don't know what testing is available. You don't know if your child's going to graduate and or they'll have to end up with GED testing instead. What is allowed by the school system? And recently we were talking about something that a lot of parents don't know is available, and that is having resources where there are educational grants that you can apply for, that they have meetings at the Board of Education about,
Wow.
and that they are, we're not saying gatekeeping, but no one will tell you what you don't know to ask.
Right. And you have to know what to ask.
So you
That
lost.
was always my problem.
Mm,
Like, and I would
anybody.
ask some of the teachers. I'm friends with them still to this day, but I was like, what do I need to ask? And it wasn't until I think my son was in second grade, and I have fought for him to get the summer program
Mm-hmm.
because he was behind in reading.
Mm-hmm.
And that teacher, she was like, "There's something else going on," and she was like, "They're having a dyslexia, um, what is it called, testing
Mm-hmm.
downtown Atlanta." She was like, "I really think you should take him just
Mm-hmm.
to kind of see what's going on because he's not, even though we've been reviewing this every day, he's
Mm-hmm.
still not catching on." And I was like, "Okay," and that's how I found out that he had dyslexia, and that's why he wasn't reading.
And I was discussing that with several instructors, and I was told that he wasn't, but I knew that he was
Hmm.
because at some point your child should stop writing some certain letters backwards
Hmm.
repeatedly. They shouldn't be
Right.
confused about that. And there are 26 different kinds of dyslexia, and the school system doesn't cover that. And a lot of people don't know
Exactly.
that. And you really need a psychiatrist
Hmm.
to do that. A lot of parents don't know that either. So some of the testing is available, but it's the basic testing.
Yes.
And so they're not allowed to give recommendations
Hmm.
for people who work outside of the school.
And actually, at that time, that was 4 years ago. And actually, at that time, they had nobody in the school system. They didn't even have anyone in the school system that knew anything about approximate speech
Mm.
or about dyslexia to help him.
Mm.
So he went pretty much because I didn't know anybody, and when I finally it was just by the grace of God that I met another parent. We having a conversation, and she's like, "Oh, my child has dyslexia. That's not the same thing that you're describing that he had, but we taking him to it." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "There's help," and she was like, "Yeah, let me get a phone number."
And someone
You
suggested to
know,
me and gave me someone else's number for tutoring for my son, but they were like on the low end, they were like 50 an hour. I was like, who and how? And 1 hour a week would probably get it. It wouldn't be enough.
right.
So you're talking about, okay, so maybe he needs 3 hours a week. That's $150 for that week. And then let's see, you're talking about $600 a month.
That's about what we've been paying for the past 3 years. But I promise you, for those who are out there that have a child that's not reading and
It's
because they
working.
have dyslexia,
Mm-hmm.
it has been the best money that we have
And listen,
sacrificed
yeah. Well,
to spend to see my baby go from I'm dumb, I'm stupid, I can't read. The other kids could
oh, he
read,
cried.
and he will come and bring books this thick home from the library. And as a mom in my head, I'm like, you can't read that. Why are you reading it? But since he was a little child, he loved books. I was a preschool mom, so I was a preschool teacher, so I always we had tons of books, and I would read them every night, to them. So he loved books. But for me to have to tell him you can't even read that book, that it got to the point that I took him to the public library and I told the librarian and I explained the situation. I said, "What do y'all have?" And this is why I love the library. She was like, "I got you." She said, "We have picture books this thick." And I felt so good because I was like, yes, he could finally get a book that he could process and read by the pictures and understand.
Yeah. RJ wasn't even remembering. Without the pictures, he couldn't remember the words. And I remember him scream crying.
Wow.
I was on my way to work, and this child was scream crying. He'd been crying since he got on the bus.
Wow.
The whole ride home. And he's in my lap. He was probably 9, and he was overwhelmed, and he was sad. And I was like, and as time went on, what we experienced was they were doing what the school system was allowed to do and required to do. They can't stay on the subject for 2 hours
Right.
because your child needs it. They have a classroom, you know, they have a syllabus. They're required to do what they've written out that they're supposed to do because they have something they're supposed to move on for each student. And yes, they can assist them, but they only have a certain amount of time. And if it's not working, what is the premise? What's next? What are their next steps? I didn't know until I knew and had a conversation like this with a parent. And I just happened to have been to Emory and was talking to someone. You can require and request that someone teach your child that has a PhD in special education. You can request that you have someone who has a master's. And when he got a master's, a teacher with a master's, and what happened was they were getting ready to pass, and I was like, no, we're not. My husband was so upset. But I felt like this is bullet room time. You're passing him into another grade, and he's not reading. So how long are we going to keep passing him? I won't have a child that can't read and you're still passing him along. as if he is. So he's going to get out of school and not know anything, and you're going to be okay with it. Even in a special education program, there should still be a standard. And I found that many people have went through the special education program, and there has been many changes, and they are trying. But some of the laws that are held in place prevent them from doing more and allow them to do less. Now, some people get into it and they realize that it's a lot because what comes with teaching children that are on the spectrum and have other learning delays as well as the ones that come with having social issues, mental and emotional problems. So much of that time is spent navigating
Exactly.
that. And
Yes.
if you have a class that's too large, now you got too large with all of that. Don't let it be a full moon. Lord
And
have
so many
mercy.
kids are not even special needs, and it's because they can't read. Seeing, going into the school systems and
They're not
different schools,
diagnosed, or they don't have to deal with. They don't have to deal with that.
right? But they're so embarrassed that they
Mm.
can't read, and they are mostly the ones that are being the ones that are misbehaving too in the classrooms.
Behavioral
You know.
issues usually come with the diagnosis of something's going
Yes.
on, and either the parents don't know what to do, or they're in a situation where the individuals that should be doing something about it are overwhelmed with other life issues. And I always say the children come wearing what they live
Yes. Oh, yes.
with. So sometimes a
I'm
lot
not
of
how
the
you want
children,
that.
you'd be surprised how many children are being raised by their grandparents
Mhm.
or in foster care or raised by other individuals. And due to whatever their parents were dealing with or the lack of that stability, some of them are even dealing with homelessness. Um, it leaves them with not having the options that other people have to make sure that they get the education that they need and the support they need. They don't have any of that. But what I found to be true is most of the children that have behavioral issues, they have behavioral issues because of being overwhelmed with their inability to learn like the other children are. And
Yes.
that is either a learning delay or something else that needs to be diagnosed. And what you don't diagnose, you can't deal with. Have you ever bought a can that didn't have a label on it? You don't know what you open.
Exactly.
You don't even know how to prepare that meal. You don't know what you're opening. You don't know if this is beans, corn, green beans. You don't know if this is expired. You don't know if this is meat. You don't know what's in that. So you can't prepare for that, or you can't prepare well, or you just gonna end up with whatever this is, and we just eating it today because we're starving it down. And that's kind of what that is when you have children that don't have the resources or the stability that other people have. So it's really important for them to put something else in place, and not having that causes so much confusion within the class. And the fact that, like I said, a lot of the classes are oversized.
Mhm.
And some of the children that aren't diagnosed but clearly have some behavioral issues, which they have, put them in, I forget what ELA
Mhm.
program that they're in, without a clear diagnosis. Now they're all in there together. No
Right.
labels. We're trying to figure out what this is. And they overcrowded the classroom because they don't have proper labels. So they can't make this the smallest size classroom that they need so that the teacher can effectively manage it. And a lot of them aren't trained the way that they need to. Yes, they get training, but they really need to put more money into that and pay them more.
Oh, yes.
And
They
so they
deserve
need
to
to,
be paid
they
more.
do, but
I
they
love
also,
the teachers.
yes, but they also need to be able to pay
Mhm.
individuals that have a higher education. Maybe some of them may need to have had some training in OT.
Well, can we talk about the parents?
Yes.
Being able to accept the labels or being
Oh,
able to accept their child, at least trying to figure out what's inside that can that
yes,
have no label on there.
yes.
Like, we need to be able to just say, you know what? Yes, You could do what you need to do, test them, and then give me the results, and then let me be the one to say yes or no.
You know what disturbs me? And this is something that a lot of people don't put on the table. A lot of it's genetic.
Mm-hmm.
If they look further down the family line, they will find so many individuals that present the same way,
Mm-hmm.
and many of them are incarcerated or have been in and out of the system, have substance abuse problems. Those children, it's important to get them diagnosed so you can understand how to treat them and help them because they're more susceptible to having, because they have addictive behavior scientifically associated with that, that they will end up in and out of the penal system and having substance abuse problems.
Yes, I agree with that.
And so, because a lot of times they have parents that have not addressed those issues themselves, they can't be of support. That's for many. A lot of times, the bond they're being raised by someone else. So that leaves the children really out there.
Exactly, and it's really sad because being a preschool, a daycare provider, for over 10 years, and all the training that I've had, it shows 0 to 5 is the most crucial time
Yeah.
to get the help that they need. And after 5, everything that they're learning, they're just building on top of what they learned from 0 to 5.
Yeah.
So 0 to 5 is really like their foundation. Like you building a house, that's their foundation. And if they don't have that foundation, then is what's going to happen is going to eventually crumble.
Yeah. It won't be stable.
You know.
And that's one of the reasons why babies can't wait exists,
Hmm.
because that window of 0 to 3, even though they generally don't give them, they'll tell them they have pervasive developmental disorder, but truthfully, that is a softer form of saying that they have autism. But the earlier they can get help determines where they end up. There will be much improvement. And this probably a lot of people want to say, it is not comforting to tell somebody how sorry you feel for them.
No,
It
it's
is
not.
not, and they won't necessarily grow out of it, but it doesn't mean that they won't be accomplished.
Yeah.
They won't do a lot. There's a
Exactly.
pageant that my daughter participates in that I love. Nationals is generally held in Chicago. It may be somewhere else that's going to hold it later. For it's called Miss Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. They also have the young men participate where they have a right hand man and they're generally on the spectrum too. But for the young women, they are accomplished in so many areas. They have many disabilities, from Down syndrome to autism. There are those who are working on their doctors. Some of them have PhDs. They have jobs and careers.
Mm-hmm.
They participate. Some of them have their own nonprofit organization. They have so many different things, and they go from the age of 6 up until their 60s. So there are different divisions that they can participate in. You would be surprised.
Yeah, because I think the misconception too, because I spoke to someone today, and it was like, yeah, they're just like your son, on the what you call the thing, and I was like the spectrum. I was like, yeah, and he's so smart. They're all smart, like
Yeah, but they're
that
smart differently.
misconception
Yes, yes.
is that our kids are dumb, and I hate to use that word, but dumb or don't know
Mhm.
anything. But I've met some of the smartest
I know who you're
autistic
talking
kids. My
about.
son is just amazing. I know I'm being biased because I'm his mom,
I hear that.
but oh my gosh, this boy, he blows my mind to think where he's come from to where he is now.
And how creative they are.
Yes, very very creative.
So creative. Some of the most creative people are on the spectrum or have
Yes.
ADHD. And you find out later and you say, yep, I can see that now. But for me, it was really hard. Going back to that subject of accepting diagnosis, I never forget a friend of mine who is no longer with us now. But I'll never forget her telling me that if I did not get my child diagnosed, she wasn't ever going to talk to me again. My daughter was maybe almost 2, And it took me a while. I finally went through the process. But at that point, I actually had got in contact with the board of education. I was in touch with the board of education before Vegas. I can't wait even got back with me.
Oh wow.
I went over and above. I was like, okay, she's clear to see something I don't.
Yeah.
Because I remember her telling me that her son had autism. She had taken him to the Marcus Institute. This is before they merged with Emory. And she said to me that he had autism. And I didn't know what that meant. And I remember she said she cried. And I couldn't understand why she was crying. What did that mean? What was the significance of that? How does that affect them? But at that point, I thought she was being a little much. But I didn't say that. I just listened. And then she told me that I needed to get my daughter diagnosed. And that if I didn't, she wasn't going to talk to me anymore. So I went on and did it. Not because of the threat, but I was like, okay, I look like a lot if I'm ignoring this. And she's clearly not reaching these milestones. And she was epilemic. And I didn't know what epilemic means. Epilemic is when can they can recite a conversation like a court
No.
reporter. Like they can tell you what they said, you said that, and they can tell you verbatim everyone and what they said, when they said, and what they was wearing when they said, and where they was sitting, what the light looked like, what time of day it was. They can tell you everything. So be careful about promising stuff because they gonna come back with it. They will. They will. But for me, it was hard. And when I got the diagnosis, I finally kind of understood when they started to have a conversation with me about it. But it was hard for me when other people would walk up to her and say, "Oh, she's so pretty," blah, 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 and they start trying to talk to her. And she couldn't respond like other children. And they would just like, "Oh, she's not talking." Because at this point, clearly she was over 3.
Mhm.
And that was hard. It was hard getting advice from people about potty training her
Mhm.
and getting this conversations where I was constantly being reprimanded as if I wasn't doing my part. It was hard when other family members said stuff to us like we clearly were letting her watch too much TV and that's why she wasn't talking. When in fact that was really one of the only reasons she was talking because of the constant repetition
Mhm.
and them saying the same things over and over. Because sometimes when your child doesn't talk, you don't talk to them.
Right.
You don't even realize you're not doing it. You just are carrying on so many things with them because you've learned to pick up on their cues on what they want. They're pointing, but they weren't using their words. And then they start having meltdowns when you don't understand. So it was really hard for me. And there were times when, and not as much now, when I would well up because I would see where other children were.
Mhm.
You ever had those moments where you saw where other kids
I
were
think the
and your
moment I
kid
got
wasn't?
the diagnosis for both of my boys
Mhm.
was special needs.
Mhm.
Um, so to me, I felt first just a backstory. It took us 14 years to have our son. We
Mhm.
went through lots of infertility. We had miscarriages. I had
I'm
a
so
tubal
sorry.
loss. Like I went through a whole bunch
Right.
to finally have this amazing miracle kid,
Right.
in my eyesight for the doctor to tell me, oh, he's not that perfect child
I hear
that I
that.
prayed and I dreamed about. And my kids are perfect, by the way. They're
I hear
perfectly
you.
made for me.
I hear
Okay.
that.
Totally perfectly made for me. But as a mom and someone who always wanted kids and had kids around me,
Mhm.
that you're telling me he's not my ideal typical kid that I was thinking I was having.
Mhm.
That now you're telling me there's something wrong with him. Oh, I cried. And then when my second baby came, and now you're telling me he has something going on, and I'm like, are
I
you
hear that.
serious? Like, what did I do?
I
Did
hear
I
that.
did I not eat right? Did I not drink right? Like what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? And then I have
I hear
all
that.
of my friends that had kids younger, and you see how beautiful they are. And not that my kids are not beautiful, because they are.
I hear you.
But I mean, I'm just being honest.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me nobody else haven't thought like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it was just so hurtful to know, just constantly in my head, that I just had to ask God to first forgive me, because He did make them perfect,
Yeah.
and then to make me the mom that they need,
Yes.
and that He will provide a way that they would be who they needed to be,
Yeah.
who He created them to be. So, it is very hard to hear
Mm-hmm.
the doctors, or to hear the diagnosis, because then you're like, what did I do?
Yeah.
You know. And so, once I got over all of that,
I hear that.
it took me a minute, but once I got over all of that, I went to work to say, what can I do to help?
Yeah. And sometimes it's important to have that journey so that you can pray for peace. And I think I started to pray for that. Pray for understanding of my kids, what they were going through, and to not internalize it or try to shame them for having a hard time.
Mhm.
I always, and this is a term that I recently started to have a conversation with, and this is what we developed, and helping my son learn to manage, because they're both on the spectrum in different places, but on the spectrum. So I have two,
Yeah.
but helping him to understand that sometimes people are in the way and they don't mean to be. So I'll say, you don't pick a blind dog. They don't mean to be in your way, and two, they don't know how to get out of your way. So someone who's having a hard time doesn't need to be slapped when they need a hug.
Right. Exactly.
And a lot of people don't recognize that, so they go on this mission of trying to help you um, fix your child. When there's nothing wrong with them, they need accommodation.
The word fix.
It's, yes, right there.
Yes.
Like they just need accommodations. They operate differently. Someone who cannot see that they're in your way just needs to learn the path that they need to move out of your way
Mhm.
for their safety and your benefit. But it's not always going to be like that. And because they are in your way unwittingly
Mhm.
and to no fault of their own, they don't deserve to be punished for it. They don't deserve to be made to feel ashamed of it.
Mhm.
They don't deserve to be put down or dismissed.
Right.
And that's what I want for the special needs community. I want us to develop more opportunities for them.
Mhm.
I don't want them to just be included. I want to create a table for them.
Exactly.
I want them to create a table that other people can come to,
Mhm.
but it is made for them. I want one where they can be celebrated,
Mhm.
they can be appreciated, and they can enjoy.
And they
I
can be
want
who
them
they
to
are.
benefit. I want them to financially thrive. I want them to have the opportunities that other people don't think that they can handle
Mhm.
or that they deserve or that they need. And that's the community that we are trying to build. So soon we will be doing other things. There will be support groups coming. There will be resources where we will be creating a resource tree, because we are going to create it where we will have where people can get the resources and information. It will be a tap away. So we're working on it. Anticipate it. Please follow us so you don't miss on your opportunity to be a part of this. If you don't need it, you may be able to share it. Sometimes we are given gifts that are not for us. They are something to pass to someone else. So thank you so much for joining us in the room with a special agenda. Please join us again. And before we leave, this book right here, show them your book that you wrote for your son, but for everyone. Share this with your child so that they know what their superpowers are. Let them write down what's great about them. Make that your affirmation for every day. Let them know how important they are, what you celebrate them, what they celebrate about themselves, so they know every day why they're important to you, to others, why they belong on this side of the earth, how God made them special, why they are important, why they are not limited or unnecessary. They should be celebrated. Help them learn to celebrate themselves. Like how we do that also. With this book, Autism Resource Book by Karen Sip Excorn, will give you information on on diagnosis, treatment, coping, healing, um, all resources on getting them other help, what to do within the school system, who to talk to. Soon we will be having a mentor. We will be doing this program in other languages soon. Soon we will also be having it translated in sign language. Follow us. Don't get left behind. Also, will be coming soon in the next couple of weeks. We'll be reviewing again how to care for your aging parents, what benefits and resources are available, whether your parent was a veteran, what's available for that. We will have someone to talk to you about that. Join us on Get Left. Have a good night. Thank you so much for joining us again with a special agenda. Love each other and love the ones that you birth and care for. Don't let other people tell you they're not important. They are. They're important to God, no matter what other people think. So show them that they're important to you. Have a great night. Thank you.